todo el mundo se va a quedar.
Yeah, they come close, yeah. And if they want a chair, well, if they want to sit down, they can take a chair there because we might want to walk around, but we're going to sit for a little bit. Okay. Good afternoon. Yeah, that was for you, but you can put it on the floor because there's a lot of stuff there. Good afternoon, or good. It's not evening yet, but good afternoon. Welcome to the Lehigh University Art Galleries. It's really a pleasure to have Maria with us today. As you know, this is a combination of exhibition, the Wilfredo Land and the Maria exhibition. They have been getting a lot of attention, and I was, very pleased and happy that Maria was able, although she couldn't come on Thursday, she said, well, on Friday and today, thank God you made it, because that was kind of difficult, They were
I missed the connection.
She met.
Well, not because of me, because of American Airlines.
American Airlines, therefore this morning was a little shaky, but thanks to Alex, I went all the way to Scranton to pick up, Maria. We got Maria, here, and that is really a pleasure because this is, as far as I'm concerned, an amazing, to us it's a very special exhibition, especially in our situation where we've been, I know Maria since 1986. As a matter of fact, we were talking.
I was one.
She was one, yeah, exactly. As a matter of fact, we met on a phone call. She was in Spain on a Fulbright. You just finished the Art Institute in Chicago, right, at that time?
2 years before.
Yeah, right, 2 years before. And then I was doing an exhibition for Photo Fest International in Houston, and we met. And since then, we have bonded, and then we started a collection at Lehigh. And as a matter of fact, that was really nice that she reacted to one of the first pieces that I bought, the one of
the blue?
No, the little one, the
adaptation.
Yeah, no, the one in the wall down there. I just got a little mental block. The little one, the one of the.
Plano de Ciudad.
Plano de Ciudad, yeah, right.
I haven't seen it in a while.
She hasn't seen that in a while.
As you can tell, we don't have very good memory.
No. Well, anyway.
You'll realize that pretty soon.
Pretty fast, yeah. Especially in my case.
No.
But
mine too.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's a big club.
It's going away.
Yeah, one thing that I would like to introduce the exhibition of Maria, I think this is the best way to look, that we are not just dealing here with any kind of a regular photographer, and you will see that in her work. Maria is a photographer who works beyond the limits of the camera. Conceptually driven, she's subject image to dissection, collage, digital manipulation, erasures, and a recombination resulting in a range of forms total include photomontage, camera-less, and that is one thing that people think, camera-less? Yes, camera-less. Sometimes she doesn't use the camera because already she have the image. Photographs, cultural installation, and archival research. Each series reveals a different facet of her worldview. Living in Cuba as an infant, raised in Puerto Rico and educated in Philadelphia and Chicago, María Martínez-Cañas, a life was infused by a family memory and imagination. And that is one thing that you can see in this work, plus all the work. This is just a little piece of her work. You can go and visit her website, which is amazing. It's one of the finest website I have ever seen. It's amazing. You can see the work. We were just talking because I thought that I was on top, and I am not. Yet she's always ahead, with some new work. And she's doing a new series now because she work by series. Like most of the contemporary artists today, they tend and they do work by series, and she's always ahead of the game or trying to be ahead of the game. And that is what basically she worked, with memories, in the case that we will be talking about 15 essays cubanos, 15 Cuban stamps, which is a fabulous series and a great idea, that was a gift from your sisters, right? The stamps or something like that. I remember that. Therefore, she was, she grew up in the Cuban culture, dislocated from the island itself. Photography for her participated in a similar sense of displacement, fragmentation, and mapping, and she got to be actually talking a little bit about what is photography for herself. But I would like to make this conversation inclusive, there for everybody, and I think that Maria liked that, to be answering a question. And later on we can move and see some work, because some of you have seen this exhibition before, and therefore we can talk about some specific work. Okay? Therefore, let's welcome María Martínez-Cañas.
Thank you.
Well,
can I say something?
By all means.
Well, first of all, it's really, I have to tell you, being in the company of LAM for me is, I cannot tell you. It's an honor as a Cuban born, and as an artist that had been inspired by his work. It's extraordinary for me to see, the two bodies of work together. I'm sorry that my dad could not come on this trip, because he would have loved to see this, in many ways, I have to thank you, because you have been quite a source of support through the years, and honestly, I could have not done it without you. So I really, we have lived, we could tell a lot of stories.
We have traveled,
yeah.
we have
traveled together, we have seen drama together, we have lived through drama together, it's been a long, a long friendship, and a professional business relationship, and a source of support that I know that I would have not been here today if Ricardo would have not been behind that. So thank you for that, because honestly, I think the show, not because I am in it, but I think it's extraordinary.
You are the show.
No. I think that to see the two things is really incredible, and that is something that for me is, it's incredible. I mean, I'm going to be, for those of you that have not met me before, on November 10th of this year, it's going to be 40 years since my first exhibition. And it was, I was not one. I was 17, I'm 57 today. It was the day before I took the SATs that I opened my first show. And I will never forget, and I had the very, I was very lucky that I asked the right high school teacher, what should I study? Because I thought I loved chemistry, but I really didn't see myself doing science. And I went to somebody that I look high up to, and I asked, what do you think I should, do? And she said, without even thinking, you should do what you love to do the most. And I said, well, if I do that, then I should do photography, because honestly, I love to take, that's what I love to do. She said, well, you study that. And I said, you can? And she said, yes. And, I always wonder if she had said, study law, and maybe I would have, been a very unhappy lawyer today. But, maybe I have such a lot of body of work because I am doing what I love to do, and this is my passion. And I tell my students that there's nothing more incredible than doing what you love to do the most, because you are happy all the time. You know, and so, any questions? Thank you for having me.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. Let me add to that Maria is one of the hardest work and more serious and committed artists because she got the passion, and that is exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah, but also because I feel that more than talent, because I think I don't have as much talent as I have discipline.
You are very disciplined.
I am extremely
disciplined.
I go to work because this is my job. I go to work every day of my life. Sunday I take off. I take it off because I think that as an artist you also have to have a day of relaxing your mind and especially when you're fighting with the work and whatever. But yes, I do have a lot of discipline, and I have the studio at home, so that also helps. Because when I cannot sleep, I go down to work, and I love it. I love what I do, and I always I try to challenge myself and to have changes. And if you ever go to the website, you're gonna say, this is the same person, because you see the series are so different from each other.
From each other, yeah.
And this is probably the body of work with the issue of Cuba as inspiration that I work the longest in, because I work about 10 years with Cuba as the source of inspiration for my work. And not everything is about Cuba, because the yellow one is viruses and bacteria, but most
and lies, you got lies down there, and you got several others.
So that was those were the tetralogy pieces.
Yeah.
But in the search for a personal identity, absolutely, that in itself has always been something that has been very important to me. I have to come to terms, because people of my generation, we were born in Cuba, but we never had the possibility of growing up in the place that we were born. I never been back, and that has been by choice, because I'm not an immigrant, I am an exile, and it's a very different situation. My family did not leave Cuba because they wanted a better life. They left because they had no choice. Okay, and it's a very different feeling, to be that. I was asked once in a panel at the Smithsonian. It was about immigration, about immigrants, and the other three artists, they were all immigrants. But I say I never heard that word in my home when I was a child. So the word that I always heard is exiles. And it's very different, because my parents never imagined that 57 years later, which is my age, because I was only 3 months old, on August 18th of 1960, that they were going to be out of Cuba. I mean, they left the suitcase with everything inside for more than a year, thinking that they were going to go back. And the day that we turned 50 years that we have been in exile, and it hit my mother, that we were in her house having dinner, you could see the change in her face, that it hit her, that she thought it was going to be a temporary thing, and it had been 50 years. It's a long time.
It's a long time. Indeed. One thing that Maria already mentioned, few things, the Smithsonian. Maria has collection in many, many important museums in the world, and also she have awards and commissions in a lot of different places. It is impressive to see. Not too long ago, last year, she got the Pollock Kressner Foundation New York Award, and I was looking here one very beautifully. In 2014, she went to Umbria, Italia, which that was a fantastic. The stories that you tell me about that place, I have been around that area, is very beautiful. Therefore, she have had by her discipline and hard work, have had the opportunity to being really rewarded by her work, by the amount of collections, this is one of her, not the latest one, but one of the latest catalogs. As a matter of fact, there are 2 more series after that, right?
One more series. This was the show. I opened a show on February 3rd of this year of the work that I did from the Paulo Krasner fellowship that I got last year. I did 20 works in 4 months. The result of the breakup of a relationship of 12 years. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't, I was in such a pain, and I did what the painter Francis Bacon always said that we artists can be our best inspiration. And it's the things that we go through. And, every time that I have gone through happiness or sadness or whatever, I do the same thing. I go and I do my work. It's cheaper than paying a therapist. even though this time I had to go to a therapist. but it's okay. I'm not going anymore. I'm fine now. But at that time I did 20 works in 4 months, and it was, and when I say work, there were 44 by 84. They were not little tiny things. I just went crazy. And so this is a show that I had on February of this year, and then after that I just, I was afraid that the energy was going to stop because, my father, who thinks that he's very funny, and he's not, but he says to me, "Can you for the next series break up again, please?" And because I thought for a minute that the energy was going to not be there, and it wasn't. It was, I went back to work, and I finished this one, and
you are writing,
and I started again, and I continue again, and I love what I'm doing. Everything is always, it's a challenge, and I love that. I also want to explain something. I describe myself as a photo-based artist, because in reality, I used to call myself a photographer, but every time I said that, the next question that I will be asked is if I did weddings. and I just want to mention, because I am a photographer, my brain and my training is as a photographic artist, and it was here in Philadelphia, as a matter of fact. My bachelor's degree is from Philadelphia, and it is there because I went to the Art Institute of Chicago. It's a much better school, but the defining school for me was PCA. At that time was the Philadelphia College of Art. Today is the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, by far. That is where I got my training. And that's where I understood light, because Ray Metzger was there as the chairperson of the department.
I did see.
Yeah, it was an extraordinary place. Barbara Blondeau had been the chairperson. She was no longer alive. I never met her, but then Barbara Crane came from the Art Institute to give a talk on her work. I loved her work. So all the Bauhaus kind of, part of my brain thinks very much about light, and the other part thinks very much as an artist, like if I'm drawing. Because when I did this series, I would do, the negatives for this work, and for that work, and let's say for those works.
Yeah, those works.
No, for each one of those are exactly on scale 1-to-1 to the pieces. So that means that the negative of that big work is 40 inches by 60 inches, and I will contact print it onto mural paper. So the template were created with an X-Acto knife by hand. I don't do sketches because I do not know how to draw. And I gave a talk at MICA in Baltimore, and people say, but you are drawing, and I say, what I am able to do with an X-Acto knife, I cannot not do with the pencil. And that's something that, you know, it was almost, I describe myself almost like a visual poet. I'm in front of a blank piece of paper and I just start making marks and building a visual vocabulary of symbols, icons, things that they'll, you know, why I went to LUAG, because I have finished the Fulbright, and what took me to Spain, the Fulbright project, was to work with the maps that Christopher Columbus utilized to discover Cuba as the foundation for my photographic work. Because at that time we didn't have smartphones, even though we still use Google Maps. Because somebody used it today to get back here. We used to have a paper that we looked up to see where we were, and I felt that I needed to be in touch with those maps in order to understand where I come from and that why is it that I feel so Cuban if I have only lived 3 months of my entire life in the island. And I had to come to terms with that. Because I talk with my hands, I'm very passionate. You know, I also describe myself as a Cuban-born, Puerto Rican-grown American citizen. And the three things and the three cultures have affected the way that I look and I react to the world completely. I am totally convinced that the importance that my parents gave to the photograph that people took out of Cuba, because every time any of their friends came out of Cuba, they would call and say, we have the pictures of your wedding. We have the pictures of, you know, Abuela Maria in whatever. We have the pictures of, you know, your great-grandmother. So they will bring the pictures and then they will show to the three of us, I'm the youngest of three girls. They will show us the pictures of members of our family that we never had an opportunity to meet. So I have no doubt whatsoever that the importance of the photographic image started from that, because they were very precious for my family. And if you think about it, when there's a tornado and you hear people, what is what people run for the photograph? You know, and it's something that we're going to lose. So the sense of archives is something that we're losing. You know, we're losing that sense of archives that I love. Because photographs, if you really look at them, they talk back to you. Because, and they are like archaeological objects. Because every time we encounter an object, we can find out about a civilization that we never even knew anything about. And that's extraordinary. You know, and for me, photographs are like that. I don't just look at them, I observe them, I study them. Because for me, they have this ability to really talk to you if you really pay attention to them.
I think that this is time now to have some questions. So, yes.
Yeah, going back to this idea of finding an identity, a Cuban identity, in the self-imposed restriction never to go back to the island. And I just wonder how much the photographic image is a substitute for the island. And I'm thinking a little bit about the work of LUAG, which you obviously refer to very much, and whether LUAG became sort of an identity, symbol for
absolutely.
The stamps of Cuba are also
absolutely. And I always say that, you know, when my oldest sister Eleni, which is only 2 years older than me, because we are one after the other. Okay, so when my sister Eleni went to Russia with a group of her university, she went to Manhattanville College on Purchase, New York. They went to Russia when nobody used to go to Russia, and she left her suitcase, everything behind, because everybody was, you know, it was the era where everybody wanted jeans, and you know, in Russia was not, you know, what it is today. It was still the Soviet Union and all of that, and you know, she brought me a little book that was Russian, you know, there was word outside in Russia, as a matter of fact, I don't know what they say, and I should have found out what it says on the outside, but when you open up, it has 4 sets of Cuban stamps. So what happened to me is that anything that will talk to me about Cuba, I will pay attention to, absolutely, because it was a constant reminder in our home. Anything Cuban was a constant reminder of the life that my parents have lived. Also, my parents were art collectors, so they were very passionate about art, and the house was always full of artists. I once asked my dad, why didn't he never collect photography? And he said, because I didn't know anything about the medium. You know, I collected paintings and sculpture is what I knew about, Latin American and Cuban. You know, I grew up, yes, I look for those things that will substitute, and that's the word that you use. It's not a perfect word, but it's close enough to, because it's not a substitute completely, but it is something that absolutely feels an empty hole, you know, and an emptiness that exists, that is almost being in limbo, because I really do not, where do I belong? Now, if you ask me today, I am an American citizen, and this is my home. You know, I was, and I don't know if I even mentioned this to you, but on June, and I will never forget the day, on June 27 of 2012, I was coming back. I am the head of the photography department at New World School of the Arts in the college division in Miami. And we were coming back with a group of Bachelor of Fine Arts graduates. There were 22 of them, the Dean of Visual Arts, one faculty member, and myself. We arrived in Miami from Berlin and Germany, where we spent 2 weeks. And as I am going through customs, the guy, the immigration officer said to me, go and stand on that wall. And an officer is going to come and take you inside. And I say, why? And he say, because your last name is Martinez. And I say, well, first of all, I don't remember ever hearing that Martinez was illegal, having your last name Martinez. And I say, you know, why are you detaining me? They say, because your last name is Martinez. And I say, so what? We have a representative in Congress, we have senators with the last name Martinez. What is the problem? You know? I say, stand over there. And I say, can I have my passport back? And he say, no. So they took me, they detained me for 4.5 hours. And you know, I never knew that in immigration, it's the only law that an American citizen has no right to make a phone call, no right to call a lawyer, and no right to do anything. You know? And I will never forget that, because it was a terrible experience for me. I had been by that time, an American citizen for 32 years. They asked me how I entered this country. I say my mother's arm, because I was 3 months old, on August 18th of 1960. Where I went to school in Philadelphia. I did my master's in Chicago. I was a Fulbrighter in Spain. I've been in this. I even forgot to mention that I had the public art piece at the airport, because the other guy suddenly, the other officer suddenly puts his head to the side and say, whoa, well, you know your script very well. And I started crying. And I said, you should be ashamed of yourself, because you should treat us American citizens a lot better. This is my country, and this is the place that I have lived the longest. And you know, this is the best of what this country has to offer. It's the diversity and how different we all are, you know. And I love that, you know, but I am an American citizen that has a stew, that has all this, that is made out of all these personalities and all these cultures. But I would not see myself living any other place than here. Not anymore. And maybe that's the reason that I haven't been back to Cuba. I have no memories. My mother once asked me, will you take me? I say, absolutely, I will take you if you want to. I don't want her now she's never even asked me anymore. Because she's 80, she turned 80 on October 9th. And I think that her generation, they live a very different Cuba. And the reason we are here is because we can go outside and scream, I hate Trump, and they don't take us to jail. We cannot do that in Cuba. And for us, when they did that to me, that I didn't have the right to leave being an American citizen, when I realized, my God, if they do this to me, I can't imagine what they do to illegal immigrants. Or to the ones that they think that are illegal, but they're legal, And it was quite an experience that I will never forget. Because it was terrible. Do you know that?
Yeah, you told me that story.
It took me 2 months to be able to mention that to my parents, because it was terrible.
No, it's awful. I feel, I have been in Cuba several times, but I will never leave this country, this is my country. And I have go back, I have been in Cuba many times, but this is where I live.
And I would like to visit at least once.
Yeah.
I would love to visit, because at the end, it is where I was born.
Yeah.
But I am not taking out a visa to return to the country I was born. So that's insulting.
After 18...
Because imagine how any of you will feel as Americans if they make you take out a visa to come to the United States.
Yeah.
Hello? I mean, that is insulting. And they charge us more.
Yeah.
And they charge the rest. And they do it on purpose. And that I'm not willing to give money to that. And as long as it takes. I may be an old lady when I return. And I would love to return when my parents are still, or when somebody's still alive that have memories, because once I don't have any memories. I have memories that were given to me.
Any other questions from Maria?
You want to see some of the works?
Yeah, that is in case
Get out?
Sure. Okay. Any question regarding any specific work that you want Maria
Or
to talk
anything,
about?
you can
Or
ask me
that
anything.
you want to talk about?
Yes.
Can you walk us through the process of how you collect your pieces?
Sure. You want to choose which one? Because not all of them are done the same way, that's why. So why don't you choose one? This series. This, which is the 15 Sellos Cubano portfolio, and I started, as you can see, my memory is not as good. I don't remember the same thing as Ricardo. I forget things. When my sister gave me that set of Cuban stamps, I always kept it. That booklet for me has always been really, really important. And when I live in Spain, every Sunday, I would go to the Plaza Mayor to read the newspaper, had a glass of beer, and they had a flea market where they sell stamps. And there was a table of this man that would sell stamps from all over the world, and some of them were from Cuba. I got them not because of any economic reason, just because I loved them. And especially the early ones, they started, I think this is number 1 on the portfolio, and then followed by the blue one, which is this one. This is the second one on the portfolio. And they go in chronological order. And I like them for different reasons. My family in Cuba were the largest manufacturing company of cigarettes. Okay? So what today is the Tabacalera Nacional in Rancho Boyeros, it was the building that belonged to Regalías El Puño, which was my grandfather's factory. And so cigars and cigarettes were always around the house. You know, at that time we didn't think of the bad things, you know, the cancer or anything like that, you know. So the tobacco boxes have to do with that, okay? Then El Diario La Marina, that even though it's a right-wing newspaper, it was not because of that, because I'm a Democrat. So. But you know, it was a paper that I heard a lot at home, you know, about it. And the way that I did is I would buy this material called amber leaf or ruby leaf, depending on the color. If it was orange, it's amber leaf, and if it was red, it would be ruby leaf. And in photography, that works like a safe light. It would allow the light to go through, but where the red is, or the orange is, it would not expose the photographic paper. So I would take and make all these marks or shapes and then decide what was going to be black, meaning the light was going to enter, expose the photographic paper, and leave an imprint. If I also, to that template, which is the same size, 11 by 14, I cut negative and put them in that order, they will leave an imprint also. So they were created by, they were templates that were created by hand. You know, the only of all, I don't know if you realize that it's always the opposite. Like the man on this one is looking that way, but on the other one is, because I cut it one way, but I printed the other way. But there's only one work that goes the right way, and it's the one of the island, because that one I could not put the other way. Right. You know, and also is one that is made out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half medium format negative that were cut. And as I am cutting them on top of a light table, so I can follow the silhouette of the island and cut the negative, I see what will have been the leftovers on the outside of the island, and it kind of came to me that it is what Cuba is, what we Cubans are. Because there are Cubans out of the island and Cubans inside the island. And that's why I decided I'm going to leave those cutouts out there, because this is the story of really of who we are. We are Cubans that are out in exile, and then Cubans that are still living in the island. But everyone has a Amelia Peláez, because my parents collected her work. Let's say La Virgen de la Caridad is the patron of Cuba. I mean, I could not have a Cuban portfolio without her in there. We have the Hurricane Irma on her day, September 8th. I put on Facebook, you know, because I have a Caridad de Cobre at the entrance of my studio, so I say, you know, let's pray to her that she would take, you know, Irma away from here. Jorge Arce, another painter, another tobacco piece, the last Christmas that my family spent in Cuba. So each one of them has a significance. One of lamb, because I have my parents used to have a lamb in their bedroom. So I grew up with his work. You know, the one that was on top of his bedroom is the one that the Tate Modern owns today, which is La Femme Cheval, that has a green background. That was the one that was above my parents' bed. So, and you know, it was a time that nobody was collecting Cuban art. Cundo Bermudez, a painter, lived with us in Puerto Rico. So I would sit, you know, next to him to watch him paint. And love that, you know, because I think that they were So yes, this was, you know, I was tired out of it after I did a show in Chicago with very large work, and I decided, you know, I want to have some fun. So let me do something, almost like a game. Nothing ended up like a game. It took me 2 years to produce the portfolio, because then I did 15 boxes with 15 images, with 15 stamps, because all of them had to be the same. You know, it ended up becoming a 2-year project, but I loved it to do it, and was very happy when Ricardo was able to acquire.
Yes, and I remember that, and yeah, very much so. I love that piece. And I was lucky because after that they all went. You sold that fast.
Yeah. Well, not that fast.
Well, but you know.
I mean, it took me a few years.
Well, but you know.
No,
Better.
I never sold out a show.
I have a question.
And yes,
It seems to me your creative process, the way you make these things, is very innovative and very creative, and I mean this as a compliment, out of the box, real amazing. How did it unfold for you? Was it a process that you slowly invented over time? Was it something that happened when you were very young? How did this very unique language kind of emerge, and when?
you have one of the early ones right behind you. When I graduated from the Art Institute in Chicago, I did my high school, my bachelor's, and my graduate one after the other. So by the age of 24, I had finished with my graduate. Okay, and this is 84. I had just finished. How did it came about? It came about in Philadelphia. I was given an assignment that was an assignment that I think is horrific to give to photographers, which is to do a still life. Okay, this doesn't have anything to do with that. This is how the abstract work starts. Okay, so I decided, okay, I hate this assignment, but I have to do it. I have no choice. So how can I make this assignment work for me? So I had just done a, I had to do a photo book. And the photo book had to have a cover, a index, a table of contents, you know, about the author, you know, it had to be, the end result had to be a book, but the thematic of the book could be about anything, okay? So I decided to combine the two loves of my life at that time, which were music and photography, okay? So I wanted to see if I could take music and represent it photographically. And I remember that my father, because he played the violin, there was a music studio in the house in Puerto Rico. And he had a stereo, a turntable, that had a machine. One of the machines had like a little display that reproduced the sound, like an electro thing. And I decided, let me take Max Bruch Concerto No. 1 for violin, Opus 26, and try to see if I can translate that piece into the emotions that the work gives me. So a teacher of mine mentioned this material, Rubylith and Amberlith, that I have never heard before. So listening to at the time we had the WAGMAin, it just came out in 1979, and I decided, let me listen to the piece and see, you know, it has 3 movements. Normally the adagio is the center, the andante, you know, whatever. And I decided, whatever emotions I get, I'm going to scratch the material, and then I'm just going to take that with no negatives and put it on top of photographic paper. Okay? So that, it was like, my classmates were like, this is not photography. So when I'm given the still life assignment, which I thought it was horrific, I decided, okay, I'm going to take pictures of still life, dead flowers, you know, this and that, you know, all of this. And I printed them. I only have 10 sheets left of 11 by 14 paper. It was the end of the semester. I had no money to buy more photographic paper, so I cut it in half. So they're small. And I decided I'm going to print the still life. I'm going to remove the negative, throw white light to the image that had just been exposed, okay? But before I did that, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of those pieces of the ruby leaf on top, okay? So when I develop, the image is black completely, but where the pieces lay on top of the image, you could see the still life. So I put that up the day of the critique. So everybody looks and say, well, where is the still life? And I say, behind the black. So my classmates hated me, but my teachers love me. So they, you know, and I didn't care about the classmates I loved. So one thing led to the other. I realized, and it kind of hit me, that in 1975, on our way to France to celebrate my 15th birthday, my dad and my mother took us to MoMA, and they took us to the photography gallery. And I saw there for the first time a Harry Callahan piece of leaves in the snow. And I remember thinking, I am not looking at a photograph. I am looking at music. And I say, if I ever, you know, and I'm 15, if I would love to do work that looks like that. So when I get to Philadelphia, it made, you know, it made a lot of sense. I was telling people that my first choice for my bachelor's was RISD. They didn't accept me because I didn't know how to draw. It's okay, things happen for a reason. I ended up in Philadelphia and I loved it, and it was the best decision I ever made, because even today, I graduated in 1982 when I was 22. I'm 57, so it's been a long time since I graduated with my bachelor from Philadelphia. I'm still friends with my teachers. They're still my mentors. And, you know, they made an impact on me that I would never, you know, Ray Metzger was incredible. And, you know, John Redman and Arnold Raphael Minkinen and Alida Fish and Ron Walker and Tom Goodman and Peter Rose and all the ones that I'm all friends with them in Facebook. You know, and when I had my last show, or the only show that I had there at the Zoellner Gallery in the photo department in 2005, 3 of my former teachers were there. And that meant the world to me, because, you know, to come back and to have a show there for me was, you know, really incredible and extraordinary.
A question. I love the conceptual nature of the way that you work. I think that kind of addressed a little bit of what you were just saying, how the idea drives the image. And I was wondering if you could talk about this image, which is the woman falling or jumping. It's really ambiguous.
It's called L-O-L-L. I said a difficult word for me to pronounce. This is from the Lehigh series. And there are 4 series. Now when I did them, I did not know that they had a relationship together. Started with lies, we continue with adaptation. From adaptation, we went to tracing, of which we don't have any here. And from tracing, we went to duplicity as identity, which is okay, the one of my father and me, which those were the tests of the pieces. But those 4 series, I was able to show them together. The only time that I have ever shown them together have been in 2009 at the Freedom Tower, which it's like the Ellis Island, you know, for the Cubans, and you know, they have a museum now, and I showed the 4 series together, and it was because it was based on an event that happened to me and my family, And I decided I was having a show in Miami, and I asked my art dealer if he would, in the press release, not mention what the work is about. Mention the title, but not, and the series was called Lies. And the idea was that the public would arrive, look at the label, look at the piece, look at the label, look at the label, look at the piece, and will assume that what the label is called is what they're looking at, okay? Because we know that photography lies. And the thing is that lies are very easy to believe, and especially those that are printed, now we have the internet, and anybody reads something on the internet and it's the truth, or it's not. We have to be really careful. And this is about lies. It was about lies that somebody put out about my father, that they came out on the paper, and I had to deal with it. So I reacted to that. So there was a piece called Michelin, which was everybody, like all my students went to see it, and one of them came and said, I love your show. It was so nice, so much fun. It was like, we all love it. And I say, well, go back and look at it again, because it's not fun. Because you had just looked at all images that have to do with crime and death. Okay? And they looked at me like, what? They say, go back and look at them. And the Michelin it looks like a Michelin guy, but in reality it's a man being strapped to an electric chair. Okay? This is a woman dead on the floor. And somebody mentioned on their blog that it looked like a puppet, like a doll. And it was the idea that we go, eBay was selling, I read on the paper, I think in the New York Times or I don't know, somewhere, that on eBay they are selling a grill, half of a grilled cheese sandwich, and because there's a Virgin Mary in it, and it's sold for $28,000. Okay, so sure enough, I go to eBay to see the grilled cheese sandwich because I couldn't believe it. They were selling it for $28,000, and sure enough, did I see the Virgin Mary? Yes, I did, because I went looking for the Virgin Mary. So that is what started the series of lies. And then adaptation, because by this time I owned, my dad acquires the archives of a Cuban writer and curator that for 30 years was the director of the Museum of Modern Art of Latin America at the Organization of American States, which is the Pan-American Union, and by the name of Jose Gomez-Sicre. And Jose Gomez-Sicre, who was a friend of my father, and I knew since I was a child, my dad came to my studio with boxes of photographs and negatives from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s of his own photography, the trips, all of this, exhibitions, when he went to an artist studio and all of that. And this is the reaction after lies. This is taking the lies and suddenly adapt them to work for me. But notice that what I am doing is I'm reacting to the artwork. I'm removing the artworks. And my dealer in New York had a major problem with this work. Because she said, what is it? But I didn't understand what was happening at that time, so I couldn't answer her. Because, I don't know immediately the reason why I'm doing sometimes a series. This happens later as I am having a conversation with people. Is that I find out, sometimes people tell me what the work is about, which is what is so interesting about it, because I just know that I have to do it. I just don't know why. And an adaptation was a way to adapt, because the images belong to Jose Gomez-Sicre. He took them in the 1940s, early 50s, at the Destil, because that I know, because I have the first image is the entrance to the exhibition, so it has the title of the show, and thanks to the internet I was able to find what the exhibition was, but I removed all the artworks that were there. And after adaptation, there's tracing. because now I'm taking the reality, you know, when you trace, you trace and we keep moving the vellum or the tracing paper from the real thing that we're tracing just to make sure that we did it, you know, right. But there are times that we do a trace that doesn't exist, that we are seeing, but it doesn't really exist. And photography is about that. It's about photographing something that really doesn't exist. And then duplicity as identity is about when are we really ever ourselves? Or does anybody really know us completely? I really feel that we have multiple selves and that we are never, you know, we are, you know, I am talking differently in front of all of you than if I would talk in front of my best friend, okay? Or if I'm talking in front of my students, or if I'm talking in front of, let's say, let's think very high, the director of the MoMA in New York, you know? But, you know, and that is, you know, how many times we have heard that somebody killed somebody, oh my God, he was my neighbor for 30 years and I never knew this. You know, so this is about that. This is about, I found two contact sheets of my dad posing in the 1970s for a bronze mask that Marisol was going to make of him. Okay, but Marisol is a Venezuelan sculptor who has had a renaissance since 2 years ago. She passed away last year. We are together on a show right now in Los Angeles, which is called Radical Women. For me, it was extraordinary because I put my video right in front of her sculpture, and I love her work. So it was an honor for me to have that. But he was photographing 12 images, medium format, because those are the negatives that come in one roll of 2 1/4 by 2 1/4, and I decided to ask one of my students to photograph me in the same position that my father appears in those 12 frames. And the way that in number 1, he's straight onto the camera. In number 2, he's about 45 degrees. Number 3, 90. Number, 4, 180. Number, so they do that's why he looks like he's doing something three-dimensional. Then I ask him, because he's still alive, what is this contact sheet for? And he say, oh my God, where you got that from? That's for the mask that Marisol was going to make of me. And the last one is him from above the head. So when the student takes my picture, and I developed the film because I wanted them to be in film, they are not in the same order. So I decided, okay, I have no choice but to scan mine images and reposition them in the same order as they appear in my father's contact sheet. So I took number 1 of mine and number 1 of his, just to help me place exactly where it belonged. And when I placed them, I almost fell off my chair because I realized that I didn't have to transform anything. I was exactly my father. And to the point that now, and I did this in 2010, 2011, or 2011, 2012, now I feel that when he's talking to me, I am not listening to him. What I'm doing is I'm looking at myself at the age of 80. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have wrinkles over there. I better take care of that. I'm going to be like that. Oh my God, I'm going to be like this. I know I'm not going to be bald. That I know for sure. But, it's funny because it really... And now I'm an adult when this happened, because let me make sure that this is 2008, 2009, so I was 48, 49 when I did this, okay? And I'm thinking, this is now me as an adult questioning the idea of identity, but as an adult. Not anymore, it was not about geographical Cuba or anything like that. It was about the individual. And it was about you know, how sometimes we, you know, because sometimes in the news you hear people that do things, and the victims are more the children of those people than, because the press publishes so many things, and they don't care if they hurt the kids or anything like that. And it took me back in many ways to things that I went through and my family went through, you know, because, you know, they don't care. You know, the press, if they can sell, that's the important thing. It's not if it's a lie or a truth, they don't really care about that, you know. And so that is how the 4 series came about. But it was a very difficult time, and it took me many years in December of 2009 to hit me that the 4 were related. So on that exhibition at the Freedom Towers, I showed 267 works that all dealt with that.
It's a lot of work within a span of 2 years.
Yeah, well, it was, you know, number one, the space was extraordinary. They gave me the entire 2nd floor.
That was it, yeah.
And I had the privilege, because for me it was an honor, to open the same evening as Joseph Kudelka, who Aperture had a show on the
Downstairs,
1st floor,
yeah.
and I was on the 2nd floor, and he was there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know his work, but he did the Gypsies and Prague and all of that. And I mean, and he's crazy. And I adore him. I thought that, I mean, I thought I was in front of God.
No, that was good.
You know, I couldn't believe that Kudelka and I opened the same evening. I've been very blessed. And I'm not a religious person, but I know that I've been very blessed to be able to 40 years later still be making my work. And you know, I had in Italy, where he mentioned the Civitella Ranieri Foundation Fellowship that I got in 2014, the oldest of the visual artists, because we were composers, playwrights, biographers, and visual artists. But there was one artist that was a performance artist, and she was the oldest of the group, because she was with Chris Burden when he shot himself, and they did performance for the first time. When performance didn't happen, she turned 82 in the castle. And I remember that Barbara T. Smith, which I just saw in LA when I went there for the Radical Women, she came to the opening. She was an inspiration, because I said, I hope that I get to be 81 and somebody feels so highly of me to nominate me for 6 weeks in this castle. I mean, at 81, I want to be Louise Bourgeois that at 95 was still doing work. You know, because I would never I will retire from teaching. I promise you that. But I will not retire from making my work. That will hopefully continue until I can.
Well, we thank you very much.
No, thank you.
We have some little, you know, something to eat, some kind of, you know, little things. Feel free to go and, you know, have something, you know, order. Gracias a ti.
Te voy a llamar como le llamo al